I think that more women need to prioritize doing rituals and ceremonies in their life. And it's something that goes beyond words. You must do it in order to feel it. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it can be very
Yeah.
simple. Write a vow ceremony to yourself, light a candle, and claim what season you are leaving and what season you are walking into.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of The Terri Cole Show. I know I love to say it, but this really is a very special episode because on this episode, I'm talking to someone who is an important person in my life, who's been in my life for, wow, so many years at this point. She was a young therapist, and she reached out to me many years ago while she was still in school, and she wanted to intern for me. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm too unorganized to have an intern, but thanks. And she just wouldn't stop insisting that she could really help me. And I was just I was a solopreneur at that point. I was doing the online stuff, but like I didn't have any books. I didn't have any courses yet. She just knew me from Instagram. And that was the beginning. And then finally I just gave in because she's like, wouldn't it be great if you had more help? Because I just had an assistant at that point. And I was like, fine. So I go to meet her in New York City on 38th and 8th. And she was about 3 minutes late. And back then I was so bad. Like I was such a time bully myself. Like 3 minutes, that's not very long. And I was convinced. I was like, yeah, I'm not having this chick intern for me. She can't even be on time at our first meeting. And she comes with her cousin. I was like, hello? You brought a person to meet. We're supposed to be having tea. And she's like, no, we're just walking my cousin to the subway. She's going to the subway. Anyway. So she's like, no, come on, let's do it. Okay, bye. So we end up sitting and talking. And that was at least, I want to say it has to be at least 20 years ago, if not more. I mean, no, how long is, hold on, 2019? Yep, 15. 15. Anyway, all I'm saying is she's amazing. She has grown into an incredible therapist. She was one of the only other therapists. There's only two people that I've ever trained in my life. One is my niece, and one is Christine Gutierrez, who is our guest today. She is a Latina licensed psychotherapist. She's a self-worth expert. She's a spiritual thought leader. She has group coaching. She does a lot of retreats, a lot of ritual work. Her first book was called I Am Diosa, meaning I am goddess, which was a fantastic book. I had her on my show for that. And we're talking today about her next book. And I'm so pumped, you guys. This book is so good. Its name is I Am Worthy. Break the spell of unworthiness, reclaim your divinity, and unearth your true power. And I really love it. And I think you guys are really going to love it. There's so much wisdom in the book itself, and in so many ways, what she's really doing is sort of combining modern psychology and ancient wisdom to help us, especially as women, break free of the feelings of not being good enough. Like there's so much pressure for us to overperform and, be back in high school jeans 3 weeks after having a kid and all the things. But what I love about Christine's approach is that it's this unique approach that blends the clinical expertise, but also mindfulness, also shamanism, modern indigenous therapy, wisdom from her Puerto Rican roots. She just moved back to Puerto Rico. It's a deeply meaningful and ritualistic way to really build self-worth. It's like you're going to be a fly on the wall for a girlfriend jam, because that's kind of what this interview is. But I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it. I am so pumped to welcome Christine Gutierrez to the Terri Cole Show. She is a repeat guest. You guys know I always have my faves back on. Just can't quit her. Just got to have her come back because she keeps writing books. Is part of the reason. So, Christine, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here, Terri.
You know it. Right on. All right. So many things to start with. But for people who are not familiar with your work, which if they know me, they probably are familiar with your work. But I want to talk a little bit before we get into this delicious, beautiful book that we have here called I Am Worthy, you guys. Available everywhere fine books are sold right now. I Am Worthy, break the spell of unworthiness, reclaim your divinity, and unearth your true power. Who doesn't want to do that? I know you do. I want to ask you, like, how did you get to this? Because we all do the things we do in life for reasons, right? It's like none of this is random. You being a licensed psychotherapist, doing the work that you do, empowering women the way that you do, all the traditional stuff that you do, celebration and ceremony that you do. So tell us a little bit about like what brought you to this point.
Well, my story really begins from my personal life, as most of us, and growing up in a home with both love and abuse, and recognizing that there was deep work to do. I always felt this deep calling to look at why, like, why does this addiction exist in my home? Why does this pain exist? I grew up in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and then in Ridgewood in Queens. And I remember walking through the streets and looking at the homeless people, and asking my mom, can I ask them their story? And she would let me ask them this story. At the time, the homeless people were people that were part of the community in many ways. They weren't as violent as sometimes now we see post COVID. And there was a draw to, how did you get here? I consider myself, I used to joke that I was like this baby therapist. And I knew very early on that something had gone wrong, and that if we could figure out the pain and the wounds and trace it back to our childhood, trace it back to our life, that maybe, just maybe, we could love ourselves better, that we could make better choices, that we could break free from addictions. And my life inevitably led me on that path of, choosing the wrong choices from my own abuse and my own trauma, and finally deciding, one step at a time, to make different choices, to choose better things, and to boost my own worthiness, right? And so my whole life has been dedicated in my own personal life to breaking out of my own spell of unworthiness, and
Yeah.
reclaiming that, and now getting to share those tools with others.
It's so amazing how you and I have both been therapists for a long time, and I'm much older than you, so I've been a therapist much longer. But still, we've known each other. I was telling the audience at the top how we know each other, and that we've really been sort of coming up though, especially in this internet world of therapists,
Absolutely.
in a similar way. And that I think that the worthiness, why I think this book is so perfectly timely right now, is that there's an epidemic. This whole online life that we all have, it people have a worthiness wound, and I think that most of us do in some form or fashion,
Absolutely.
right? It doesn't even have to be leading with that, but it's there. That social media 24/7 has not helped it. So I feel like the time for this, because people, I think that sometimes there's this illusion that if you have worthiness issues, that it's very obvious that if you are successful, you can't have worthiness issues. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, the wounds of unworthiness shows up in many different ways. And for some people, it's more obvious, like choosing an abusive partner and not feeling worthy of being in a healthy relationship. For others,
Right.
it's far more complex and far more hidden. Many of my clients that already have, gone through all the steps, and they're successful, and they seem like these high achieving women on the outside, and they are, right? Like, they've come through from so much hardship and risen. And oftentimes there's this unworthiness of not being able to rest, or feeling like they have to produce in order to be worthy, not feeling worthy of pleasure. And in my book, I break down all these sections and really go deep into these different areas of, rest and pleasure and productivity and community and friendship. Maybe your career part of your life is thriving, but your rest and your sensuality and your pleasure bucket is really low. And I see it so often with people that are just like addicted to the working, addicted to feeling
Yeah.
like my life is put together, right? And what happens when I rest? And what happens when I calm down? And for me, even, I had to learn to schedule things in my calendar that allowed me to prioritize rest and pleasure. Now I live in Puerto Rico, and it's a little bit easier with the Caribbean lifestyle, but I'm a born and raised New Yorker. So for the New Yorkers that are there, they know that if you grow up in this city, fast-paced life, you forget that you are a person,
Right.
that you have a
Yeah.
spirit, that you need to tend to yourself. And because of uh, consumerism and capitalism and all those things and structures, not only internally but externally, that are very real pressures, we're navigating a lot of things at the same time. And so that worthiness comes up there as well. And I'm constantly asking people, how can we don't have to change everything overnight, but how can we take a moment to look at these different places in our life and say, what is one way that I can add more rest to my life? Right? Rest is
Right.
revolutionary. Pleasure is revolutionary. My
Yeah.
grandmother and my family members had to hustle so much in their lineage, as many of our lineages had to, for us to be where we are today. And so the way I see it is every time I take a nap, every time that I go do my nails and I take care of myself, every time I show my daughter that I'm taking care of myself, I'm doing a revolutionary act for her worthiness and my worthiness,
Yeah.
breaking free from those generational wounds of, overproductivity. Um, yeah, my daughter saw me the other day and she was telling me, she was like, Mama, when I'm bigger, she's 4. She's like, when I'm bigger, I want to work like one day work, one day no work, one day work, one day no work, like you, Mama. I was like, she got the code of rest. She got it. She feels
I love
worthy
it.
of rest. It's a big deal.
It really is, and it's interesting how culturally, right? You and I have obviously very different cultural. Well, we know because we know each other, different cultural backgrounds, but it's still built in. So even having sort of like a waspy Protestant work ethic type thing,
Absolutely.
the workaholism and the productivity equaling your worth is absolutely baked into my experience. And I've spent years trying to untangle those connections where it doesn't have to be that way. And you and I have been talking for years, Christine, about not working ourselves to
Yep.
death, about feeling like we have in the past and really supporting each other and not doing it. One part of this book that I know I need, and you've added this value to my life already, but I love that you're now going to be adding it to the value of other people's lives, is one thing coming from my culture that we are short on is rituals and
Yeah.
ceremonies. We've got our own, but they're really not that great. So I love what you're sharing in the book. So let's talk a little bit about some of the rituals and ceremonies that you're sharing with us in the I Am Worthy book.
Yeah. So for me, rituals and ceremonies are a way of really bringing spirit into the mundane, and allowing us to ritualize things helps us to move from one season of our life to the next. And you can call these rites of passages, and many of us know the more traditional ones like a birthday or a marriage, but there are far more that we skip. Maybe it's that you finally hit a certain place in your life where you finally learn to set boundaries, and you're feeling like you're moving from this people pleaser into like this queen energy, right? And there's an archetypal shift that you're going through. And naming that, like, I am moving from a malnourished, woman into this nourished woman season. And I remember for
Yeah.
myself, when I was going through my postpartum after I gave birth to my daughter, I did a ritual for myself that was, first naming it. I'm moving from giving, right, which is part of this mothering season, and I'm coming back to being a nourished mother, and getting candles, getting flowers, having people attend this ceremony or having it be alone, you get to decide, and really writing down a vow to yourself, right? Like, what what do you want to commit to yourself in this next season? What do you want to make sure that you do in this next season? For me, it meant, taking myself out on dates. It meant, prioritizing what my desires were in this new identity as a mother, but a multidimensional mother that loves to write books and serve big gifts to the world, and not limiting myself. So in this book of I Am Worthy, you have an opportunity to really develop the archetype of the worthy one, the worthy woman within. And there are rituals and techniques that you can use inside the book, so you can really activate that, so that you can feel kind of like that queen, that worthy energy in your body, and own it, right? And what happens is so powerful, because when you do that ritual, whether it's lighting a candle, buying flowers, writing a vow ceremony to yourself, is that on a subconscious level you are encoding it. We know now that our world is mostly run by our subconscious, and the symbols and the rituals that we do really help you to integrate that psychologically and spiritually. So I'm a big fan of them. I think that more women need to prioritize doing rituals and ceremonies in their life, And it's something that goes beyond words. You must do it in order to feel it. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it can be very
Yeah.
simple. Write a vow ceremony to yourself, light a candle, and claim what season you are leaving and what season you are walking into.
There's something really powerful, though, about when you think about rituals and ceremonies themselves, that what it really is from a therapeutic point of view, it's a pattern interruption where we can't just, as David G would say, wake up, sort of like drill through our day, drop and wake up the next day and do it all over again. We can, people do it all the time, but this is a way of marking time, but also honoring that there's just this. I was saying to Vic the other day about how, having inherited kids, being a bonus mom, I didn't physically have children. And that I'm always blown away by the fact that women can literally create a life and how they push it out of their body through their
Yeah,
wow, ouch, and oh my God. That every woman deserves like a parade.
yeah,
But again, so much of the time there's an expectation, especially in the US, that you'll go back to work in 3 months and that you know what I mean? Where it's the opposite of what we're talking about.
absolutely.
And so, like, grabbing a hold of those rituals and ceremonies and celebrating is kind of everything, because even the death of a part of your life is to be acknowledged. I don't know if we need to celebrate it, but it is to be, because Deepak had said to me many years ago, what has to die for what you're creating to be born?
Absolutely. I am a Scorpio. I love the underworld. I love honoring death and rebirth. And for me, we live in a culture, and I talk about this in the chapter where I talk about the seasons of change and how we must honor them. And there is a chapter called "You Are Worthy of Growth and Flowing with the Seasons." And we live in the United States predominantly with a culture that is obsessed with summer. We live in a culture that is obsessed with youth, that is obsessed with not dying, that is obsessed with going,
Yep.
going, going. And the work that I do as both a therapist, but really as a spiritual mentor now, is to remind people of the natural cycles, of the seasons, of returning back to our true coding as these primal mammals, as these wild women. And as we remember these seasons, and we remember that winter is just as holy, and that in the dark womb is where life is born. You cannot have life without the darkness. And so when we run culturally from death, you stay far away from your home, your spiritual home. And so, really, a lot of women, we live in a culture that we don't know it because we don't have the language for it. We don't know, why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel vacant? Why do I feel empty? Why do I feel like I have all the things on the outside, but I feel empty? It's because you're disconnected from your cycles. You're disconnected from yourself. You're disconnected from the death, life, rebirth cycle. The more
Yeah.
close to that death life cycle we become, the more eros, which is that sexual energy, comes, because eros dances with death energy. And because we are constantly avoiding death energy, we are moving past the expiration date. If you think about it, like, there's milk in your fridge and there's an expiration date, and if you keep it there long enough and you try to taste it, it's going to be nasty. Well, a lot of times that's what happens in our life. We have a lot of expiration dates where our spirit is telling us, move on. This is the next season. You're meant to go to this next season. You're meant to expand. You're meant to share your voice. You're meant to leave that marriage. You're meant to do that thing. And we don't listen to it because we don't believe we're worthy of it. And so that's why when we do this and we have the language, and in my book, you learn language. And beyond learning language, there is an energetic frequency that I place in the book, that you are activated and you remember things, because it's not just teaching. This is a remembrance. And we all have it in us, right? We all have it in us. And whether we are
Yeah.
bleeding or we are not bleeding, whether you had a hysterectomy or not, we are still connected with the moon cycles. There's a whole chapter on that too. So I'm really passionate about all of us um, smelling, activating that wolf sense in us, and smelling, what needs to die in my life? What are the patterns and what are the places in my life that things feel like they're stagnant? And what desires are being born? And asking, is this bringing me closer to my worthy woman self or my worthy one? Or is this bringing me farther away? Is this thought bringing me
Right.
closer? Is this action bringing me closer? Is it bringing me farther away?
There's a part in the book that really spoke to me about masks because I think that it took me a long time in my own life to even realize how many masks I was wearing in my life. And so there's a section on page 61 talking about taking off the
Yeah.
masks and some of the things that can indicate that you are wearing masks, acting like everything is fine when it isn't, saying you don't care about something when you really
That's
do,
huge.
pretending to be super nice. Say it again.
That's huge, right? Saying you don't
Say it
care
again.
about something when you really do.
Oh yeah, that one resonated the most for me on the list. Pretending to be super nice when you're angry inside, acting angry when what you really feel is hurt,
Mm,
right? So we have all this misnaming of emotions. Saying you can take on more when what you really want and need is to be held and supported. And you then go on to talk about the archetypes, and I think that readers really get a sense of like, who are you? Are you the people pleaser? And so you have the mask and the traits. So people can, as you're reading, you guys, you can go through people pleaser, bully, social butterfly, controller, avoider. There's a whole bunch of them. Seductress, Puritan, conformist, and really seeing yourself. And again, these are archetypes, so it's not like a judgment, but it's a really great GPS of sort of locating where are you not embracing your worthy woman self? Because when we're doing these things, we're not accurate.
absolutely. And we all, these are ways for you to see, has the volume been too high on an archetype in your life that's no longer serving you? So, for example, if you grow up having to shut your mouth because you went through a lot of trauma, you might really take on the role of being a good girl, wants others to be seen as good, as acceptable, and compliant, right? And so if you grew up in a house that didn't honor sexuality, you might have this Puritan archetype and feel very uncomfortable, maybe even dancing or singing or letting your voice out. So when we are in those places and the volume is too high and we're not really letting ourselves be who we really are, we're not connected to our worthiness. We feel trapped. And the opposite of that is feeling free, right? When we are fully expressed and we know the volume is just right on those areas in our life, we feel free. We feel like we can finally be ourselves. We feel seen. We don't feel like we're doing things for others, for the world, to be seen a certain way, for people in our family, for social media, and our relationships, right? And it takes a lot of time to get to know ourselves and to be like, wait a minute, you know, I don't want to be this way anymore. And naming that and really owning that and being comfortable with changing your identity over and over again. I think part of this I am worthy book is giving you permission to really look at the places where you've been under the spell, is what I call it, of unworthiness, and really giving yourself permission to look and say, is this identity the one that I choose for myself, or is it based on parts of me that were formed because I felt unworthy? I know for myself so many different places that I chose in my life were because of the unworthiness spell that I was under, whether it was from the downloaded scripts of, the childhood wounds, or whether it was from, bad relationships, whether it was from society and seeing that, people that look like this are more important or more beautiful or whatever it was, really looking and
Right.
being like, is this truly me? And how can I be more me? How can I be more me? I believe that all of us have a unique blueprint, and we're encoded with that worthiness. And whether you want to say, if you're using it in the God level, right, and you're saying I'm crowned by people that are like, my birthright, God crowns me. I'm the daughter of the Most High, right? Or if you are using more spiritual language where you're saying, I'm born worthy. I don't have to do anything to be worthy. Simply you being born, you are worthy. You don't have to prove your worthiness. You don't have to do anything. You are simply born worthy. And then we forget little by little. And now we're remembering.
Yep.
And my prayer is that as you read this book and as you do this work, you remember who you truly are beyond all the spells of your life.
So beautiful. It's like the possibility, though, like what I find about this book and the way that you've written, I love all the stories that you're sharing, but that there's a hope in it, and it's also an invitation. It's an invitation to change what isn't working, an invitation to be honest about how you feel. And what's interesting in my groups and teaching, I feel like people, women in particular, get afraid to like acknowledge where they're unhappy, let's say, or acknowledge what's not working in their life, because then suddenly there can be pressure to be like, well, now I know it and I have to change it. And I always say, take your time. And what I love about the way this book is written is that it's very luxurious. You're reading it and you don't feel pressured, and it doesn't make you wrong. It's really, it feels like a coming home to the truth about what we always knew about ourselves before it got indoctrinated. We got indoctrinated into these other ways of thinking, and very patriarchal, if we got to be honest, right?
Absolutely. And there's so many activities and like really grounded exercises. I love the mystical, but I also love the practical. And really combining this like psychological approach with this mystical approach, which is definitely my style. And in the chapter that I mentioned, page 209, there's a whole ritual around what I'm letting go of, what I fear about letting go, and then the wonderful things that are possible when I let go. Hope is so underrated, and having faith gives you light and gives you strength, and it gives you that armor so that you can slay all the things that you fear. Because if you're just going through it and you're like, okay, I'm going to let go of this, I'm going to let go of that, I'm going to let go of this, you need some hope. You need a vision. You need something. And it may be a slight moment. I'm going to share something that I haven't shared on any other podcast that I won't talk about with anyone else except for you, because we're actually, have an intimate relationship in real life. But um my ex-husband and I, we are conscious co-parents. We have a wonderful relationship. We share our beautiful daughter, Mardeluz, and I have a partner in a very happy relationship. And one of the things that I told myself was we didn't have any cheating or any horror stories or anything like that. It was just, this is not the right fit for who I want to be in this next season. And I think we can have a more loving relationship and love each other the way we're meant to in this conscious co-parenting, not in this marriage romantic dynamic. That is what my
Yep.
spirit said. Now, for anyone else, if you're going through trauma, you're going through all this thing, heartache, you're like, well, he's a good guy. You could stay. What's the big deal, right? Like, just stay. You got a kid. And there was a part of me that was saying that, the unworthiness part, right? Who are you to have this magical blah 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 blah? You can't call perfection. You have someone that's good to you and kind to you and great to you. Your daughter is an excellent father, right? Like an artist, spiritual, why not? Just stay. And then there was another part of me that said, I desire magic. I desire magic in every area of my life and even more alignment with my values than I thought possible. That's what I really want. And there was a vision, Terry, because it was not an easy choice, right? We have a daughter.
No, I know.
There was a small moment in the kitchen, a tiny glimpse of vision, and it was of my daughter. And it was me kissing and making out with someone with no face. It was just an energy. And it was my daughter saying, "Ew, mom, gross," happy, looking at me in love. And that tiny glimpse was the hope that I needed to make a very difficult but right and beautiful choice. And I really believe in women giving themselves an opportunity to listen to those signs and those symbols and those moments and those feelings that say, and there is a meditation there in the book of what does your worthy woman want to feel in this season of her life? Because the season of you that just passed, maybe you're dead. Maybe you're living in a season of parts of yourself that are old. And maybe there's a new vision being born. And so that really inspired me. And I want people to think about the hope and the desire that lives on the other side of any kind of choice that you're doing so that you can have a more pleasurable experience. It can be pleasurable. My birth, I had an ecstatic birth. So I know it's rare, but I had an ecstatic birth where I had pleasure in my birth. Pleasure. I was like, oh my
Yep.
God, this que rico. This feels, I love the contractions. I call them waves, and I loved it. I loved it. I was smiling. Okay. Delusional, right? I gave birth at home with two midwives. And It is possible to dance with pain with pleasure. And the hope is the thing that helps us do that when we're making difficult decisions away from unworthiness to the worthy vision of the dream life that we truly want.
I so appreciate you sharing that story because it's such a pivotal moment of becoming in your own
Mm.
life. And I think that what it gives us in you sharing it is that it's possible, right? That what you want is possible. And I think that there's truth in that, but what does it require? Which is exactly what you're saying. There's Obama had this book, The Audacity of Hope, and that's what it reminds me of. It's like having the courage to remain faithful and hopeful in some way, and being willing to do the work. Because, Christine, what was required of you to have that sliver of
Mm-hmm.
light and hope that now is your life, that became your actual life, is listening to your
That's
soul,
it.
thinking you are
Mm-hmm.
worthy of what you want, knowing that it was there for you and that what you want to model for your
That's
daughter,
it.
what you want her to know about love. And all of those things propelled you towards a very difficult decision. And yet you guys are just negotiating it beautifully and so lovingly and so consciously that I want to be like, that's your
I
next
know.
book. But
That's
okay.
a whole nother book and whole nother thing because boy, do I have wisdom in my next one for that. But it's true. And, I want to say, when you have gone, many of the listeners, it ranges from 20s to 70s, but many of us have gone through a lot of moments of death, life, rebirth. When you have enough faith that you have died and been reborn enough times, you're like, oh, I done this shit. Oh, after the darkness, that's the part where, okay, I feel bad. And then I sucks. And then I come out.
Yep.
So when you have
Yep.
enough experience with initiations that way
Yep.
and going through those rites of passages enough time, you have more faith. That's why it's important to collect them. That's why it's important to keep
Yep.
walking through them. In the beginning, the first time I had that moment of having to choose a hard thing, it was much harder. I didn't have enough evidence, right? But
Yes.
then
Yep.
little by little, you start realizing, oh, this is the same thing. You choose the hard thing, but it's the right thing in your soul. And then it speeds up the process. And I remember saying, I'm not going to grieve in the same way because I've already grieved. I'm looking forward to the pleasure. You can even reduce the gap of grieving in some ways. You still have to grieve, but you can do it in a more
Sure.
pleasurable way. And you can do it
Right.
in a way that's like, when I listen to my soul, I like the way it burns. I like the way it feels when I'm choosing to live from my soul, even if it's like that ouch, but it's the good kind. And your soul rejoices because
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, you're choosing life force. You're choosing arrows. You're choosing creativity, and new life." And so it's really powerful to walk this way. I consider this. I say, when I ask the book, I always say, "What is the soul of this book trying to write through me?" And it said, "This is the worthy revolution. This is a revolution where I want women, men, all souls, all people that are called to read this book, two spirited folks, everyone, to really, really, really do the work required to reclaim their worthiness because all the doors open in all the areas of our life when we believe we are worthy of them. And it is so potent and so beautiful to live that way. And I want to give people that faithful reminder that no matter where you are, no matter if you're in the middle of the storm or coming out of it celebrating or in the beginning, that it's all
Yep.
worth it.
And this book acts like a portal to that next place and everyone can get there. It's just, are you willing to be led? Are you willing to do the work? And what I love about the way you've written this, Christine, is that it's so accessible. If you can read, you can do this.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you a question not related, which is, I'm asking everyone this same question, which is, for you, what has been your most challenging boundary struggle, and how have you overcome it if you have?
My most challenging boundary struggle, I think, has been being a people pleaser and not asking for enough help. And so, really, with my ex-husband, when he got sick, it was a big initiation for me to have to be brought to my knees, and that superwoman mask that I talk about as well in the book, and all of the different masks had to come off because I was so used to saying yes to all the things, and yes, 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 and I got this, and I got this, and my boundaries weren't locked in really honoring, what do I need? What does my worthy woman need here? If I'm needing more support, how can I ask for that? How can I advocate for myself? And so I found that it was very easy for me to give, and it was very hard for me to receive. And I really had to practice a lot with that in all areas of my life, sensually, financially, energetically, friendships, and romantically. And I'm happy to say that as a result of doing that boundary work, and as a result of slowly being like, hey, yes. And actually, I have a good practice for anyone. If anyone offers you anything, say yes. And even if it's something small, like I just practice saying yes to everything. Like it was like, even if I didn't want something, I would just say yes. Like, do you need something from the store? You know what? Yeah. Like, can I have some water, please? I practiced and I pushed myself to say yes all the time
I love it.
because I needed my volume was so low on saying yes that I had to really
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
hard. And yeah, that has definitely been the most challenging, and I constantly remind myself in the areas where I'm most tender. I tend to like place my hands on my body, close my eyes, and ask myself, um is this coming from a place of you wanting to receive that thing that you're giving, or is it coming from a genuine place within you?
So good. I love it. All right, tell everyone. I know that you guys, this is the book, this is the author, psychotherapist, friend, beautiful witch in the best way. The book
Absolutely.
is called I Am Worthy. Break the spell of unworthiness, reclaim your divinity, and unearth your true power. You can get this book everywhere fine books are sold right now. So tell us where we can find you, Christina. Where should people get the book?
You can buy books everywhere, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. You can go to christineg.tv / I am worthy book. And you can find me on Instagram at Cosmic Christine.
I love it so much. Well, I love
I love
you
you.
and thank you so much. I'm so proud of
Thank
you,
you, my
so proud
love.
of the work that you're doing, so
Mm,
grateful that you took the time to write this book because we have an unworthiness epidemic.
absolutely.
And I really feel like this is the antidote right here.
Worthy revolution.
Love it.
Thank you.
I love you.